lots of different sizes, and you can find some ginormous ones that are already covered with a cord, and you can use those on for coats, for example, heavier, bulkier garments, and they are quite sturdy. The goal of a hook and eye is to bring two edges, in our case, our center back by our facing, two edges together. And the important part of that is to make sure that when you bring those edges together, that the hook and eye actually make those edges meet. So if you're going to put that on, you don't want to put it on so that the hook extends over your center back or wherever you're bringing your two edges together. You want to make sure that the tension is slightly tight so that when you close them, it holds those edges together. So sometimes what happens is when you first start putting them on, you put them a little far apart. It's better to put them a little closer together. The other thing to remember is also to stitch down the hook part of your, if you can, on your facing, get in there, to put the hook, put a few stitches around the hook to hold it flat so that it really doesn't separate. So I'm going to do this kind of toward the middle so you can kind of see. I'm going to pretend this is our center back. I have my thread double knotted, however, double threaded and with a knot. And the reason I'm doing that, it's a little bit of a, I won't call it a cheat, but it's sturdier. So I'm going to start by taking a few stitches through the eye, the hook, I'm sorry, the bottom part of the hook. And I'm going to go through my fabric, just pulling. I'm not going to go in and out, I'm just going to kind of pull my stitches right through.
Sometimes you'll see in couture garments, they will have buttonhole stitch. You guys have not done buttonhole stitch, but right. It's almost like an embroidered stitch. They just used to put the hook and eye down,
so
especially the hook.
Do you want me to show a button? No. Okay. I can. I don't want to confuse the issue, however. All right, so I'm placing my stitches fairly close together. I don't want to make giant knots on it and make it bulky, but I do want it to be secure. This is a stress point. This is a little piece of metal here that's meant to bring your edges together, and pressure will be applied against it.
You stitch all the way around?
I stitched from one section around to the other. Now you notice that there's a little opening. It is possible for those stitches to slide off, so I started slightly below. When I come over to this side, I'm going to go a little higher up.
There are two loops, right? You have to make sure that you sew both of them to the fabric.
Okay, so I've come around both of them, and you can see I'm a little bit far back from that edge. So when I go to put my eye on, I'm going to have to come a little bit closer to make sure that when it hooks, it stays together. I'm going to take this thread now and just run it up to the top through the layers of the fabric so it's not showing on the front. And I'm going to take a stitch or two underneath the hook. Just to hold it in place. You will be doing this. This is to your facing, which is not. Will it be attached by then? Will they have stitched? Okay, so you want to make sure that you're not taking your threads to the front of your garment.
Yeah.
Only through the facing, not through to the front. Okay? And then I'm going to just do a couple of loops here to end my stitching. So I would say that the positioning of your hook and eye are the most important part of doing this. And if you're having trouble holding onto it or feeling like you can't position it evenly or correctly, a teeny tiny piece of Wonder Tape can just placed under this hook part can help to hold it in place a little bit if you're having trouble, if it's really slippery fabric or something.
I always do Wonder Tape, or double stick tape.
Yeah. All right, so now I want to come over to this side and I want to bring my edges together, and so as I said, I'm a little far out from my edge. The top of your hook should come just maybe like barely a 1/16 of an inch away from your edge. You don't want it right on the edge because you don't want it to extend too far, but this is just maybe a little bit too far back. We'll see. And so you would mark your center back, you'll mark where your hook and eye are going to go. And I'm going to put this right on the edge because this might be the one that you'd want to put the Wonder Tape on. Okay, and you also can use thread loops That's another thing in better clothing and couture. You can use thread loops. All right, so again, you don't want this to come through to the front of your garment. You just want it to be on your facing only. And I'm doing the same stitches that I did on the other side. And I'm going to come over to this side. Now, these are the kinds of details that always take just a little bit longer than you thought they might. So make sure that you allow enough time to do a good job. You don't want to do a sloppy job. Finishing details have a way of showing up, and if they're not done nicely, they show up in a negative way. So anything that you're putting on to the garment as a finishing technique, you want to make sure you pay attention to doing it neatly and, of course, correctly. All right, so I'm stitching through my fabric, but that would be just the face of your facing, not all the way through to the front. Now the moment of truth. So what happens if it doesn't? What happens if it overlaps, like mine is overlapping here? What would the suggestion be? What would be your first thought?
What is overlapping?
Well, I want these two edges to meet exactly here. Okay?
I would have suggested to measure.
Yes, not just to measure, but also to make sure that actually the one that should be moved up should be the hook. It should be closer to the edge. It should be more here, and it's set a little further back. Do you see that? It should be closer to the edge, because then if I do that and then I hook it, it's exactly meeting in the middle. You want it to be secure though. You don't want it flopping around. So you don't want this one to extend too far. You want the hook to be the one that extends. It's the stronger of the two. Okay? I'll sew another one on the right way. Any questions about this?